Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm not really sure how this, let's see. Okay. Just gonna tap. Just testing. Yes, I got this new microphone for today. I'm really excited to use it, so I hope it works. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm muted. Okay. There we go. Hi everyone and welcome to today's class. I see almost everyone's here. Let's see, how many are we? Okay, so yes, if you didn't catch what I said earlier, I just got this new microphone. I'm very excited for it since you guys have been saying that you can't always hear me properly, so let's try this today and see. So before we get started with today's class, as you know, this is history course number 3. We are moving from European history over to the US history between maybe the next few weeks. However, today we're still focusing on European history, more specifically Middle Ages. Who's excited to talk about Middle Ages a little bit? Okay, I know it can seem a little bit boring. I know a lot of people think that the Middle Ages was just dark and sad and not a lot of things happened, but I hopefully maybe might be able to change that opinion for you just a little bit. So I'm just gonna adjust where does it, here we go. So I'm just gonna check to see who's here today, and then we're gonna go ahead and get started. So I hope everyone has a pen, their notebooks, or their computers if you're using that. Maybe a glass of water if you get thirsty. Okay, and that your phone is on silent or do not disturb so that it's easier for you to focus. So let's see. So is Sophia here? Yes. Jackson? Emma? Olivia? Liam? Benjamin? Okay, hi. Chloe? Okay, so Chloe's not here. Madison? Good morning, Madison. How are you doing? I'm good as well, thank you. Logan? Ryan? Then Caleb already sent me a message that they're not going to be here today, unfortunately. Charlotte? And Layla. Wonderful. So it seems like almost everyone is here today. So let's just get started. So, the Middle Ages are sometimes also called, or have been called in the past, as the Dark Ages. So many people, when they think of the Middle Ages, maybe what comes to mind? Monasteries, okay. Feudalism, good. Anything else? Old cathedrals, yes. And castles. Yes, castles, that's a big one. And it's tied to the feudalism, which someone already mentioned, which was very good. I can see that you've been reading ahead on the textbook, I guess. Liam? Yeah. So the Middle Ages are usually, it refers to the period between the fall of the Roman Empire, which was, yes, it was the year 476, and about the 1330s or the 1400s, and that time is called the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. This was originally, this time period was set by an Italian poet and scholar named Petrarch. So it was actually named the Dark Ages afterwards, or after the fact. So Petrarch believed that the Dark Ages was a period of intellectual darkness, and that was due to the loss of classical learning, which he saw as the light. So the lack of classical learning, classical arts, meaning something derived from ancient Greek or Roman, he saw as being something of a higher value than things that happened during the Dark Ages. Later historians picked up on the idea, and ultimately the term Dark Ages was transformed into Middle Ages. So broadly speaking, the Middle Ages is a period of time in Europe between the end of the Antiquity in the 5th century and the Renaissance, or rebirth. Can anyone explain to me what was the Renaissance? Very quiet, no volunteers. Yes? Yes, it does mean rebirth. Well, it's not quite that. So Renaissance was mostly a cultural movement. First and foremost, cultural movement, which means the rebirth of antiquity, exactly. But we will get into that much later. So, what do you think about characterizing the Middle Ages as a period of darkness? Why would someone like Petrarch decide to do that? Because he thought the antiquity was a greater time? Yes, that's actually quite close, or almost exactly what happened. So they would define the Middle Ages as a period of darkness falling between two greater, more intellectually significant periods, and that is very misleading. The Middle Ages was actually not a time of ignorance and backwardness, but rather a period during which Christianity flourished in Europe. As you guys remember, last Zoom class we talked a little bit about how Christianity in its popularity surpassed the old Roman religions and actually became the only allowed religion in the Roman Empire. So Christianity, specifically Catholicism in the Latin West, brought with it new views of life and the world that rejected the traditions and learning of the ancient world. So during the Middle Ages, the Roman Empire slowly fragmented and fell apart into smaller political entities. Oh, someone actually fell off the Zoom. Let me just get them back in. Yeah, hi, did you have a problem with your internet? Okay, I'm sorry I didn't notice. Which part did you miss? Okay, well, you can ask one of your classmates to send you the notes that they took so that you can keep up. But we were talking about the Middle Ages and that it was a strong time for Christianity. So the Roman Empire was slowly fragmented into many smaller political entities. The geographical boundaries for European countries today were actually established during the Middle Ages. Can anyone give me an example of a country which boundaries were formed during the Middle Ages? Yes, Germany. Yes, that's a very good example. France as well. Yes. And obviously these borders have been later changed and they aren't exactly what they were during the Middle Ages. However, this was the establishing of those countries. It was also numerous periods of religious reform and the birth of the tourism industry. can anyone give me an example of medieval literature? If you think of the Middle Ages, like we were talking about monks, monasteries, great big churches and castles, maybe knights and princesses. Can anyone give me a piece of literature? Maybe something that you guys have discussed in your English class? Canterbury Tales, exactly, very good. Has anyone read Canterbury Tales? No? Charlotte? Oh, you know what it's about, but you haven't read it. Would you like to share with the class? Very good. And also, unlike one might think, the visual arts also prospered during the Middle Ages, and that created its own aesthetic values. So the wealthiest and most influential members of society commissioned cathedrals, churches, sculpture, painting, textiles, all the way to jewelry, ritual items, and pieces of clothing. So many of these commissions were religious in nature, but medieval artists did also produce secular art. So what does secular mean? Yes, so something that is not tied to religion, something mundane, something ordinary. Yes. The reason why a few of the artists' names survive and there aren't any documents of their business dealings is that during the Middle Ages, artists often worked in groups and they wouldn't leave their signature into the piece, since it was only seen as not as a work of art but as a commission from an influential family or a wealthy family. So it would be just like any other object that you would do, for example shoes or furniture. Art was seen as just another one in that list. So unlike today, where we see art as something of extraordinary value created by the artist itself. Yes. So another word that none of you mentioned, but which is clearly tied to the Middle Ages, is the Byzantium. Yes, it's also called Byzantine, but do you know what it means? Byzantine, what could that be? Crusades. Yes, it is tied to the Crusades. It has something to do with the Crusades. Okay, well, let me tell you, and remember to take notes since this seems to be a new subject for you guys. So the Byzantine Empire was created as the Roman Empire fragmented. So Byzantine was located in the eastern ex-Roman Empire, and it actually remained a very strong, centrally focused political entity. Byzantine emperors ruled from the city of Constantinople, which they thought of as the new Rome. So in their minds, it was the city of Rome transferred to a new place. It was called Constantinople. And Constantinople actually has one of the world's largest churches. Does anyone know what it's called? Okay, so it's Hagia Sophia. Yes, and it's located in Istanbul. I'll give you a moment to take notes. I know this is a lot of information in a short time. I'll just go over a few more things and then I'll divide you into breakout rooms where you can discuss the subject, share your notes, and make a list of questions if you have any additional questions in the subject, since that is a great way to learn new things. Okay, so while in the Catholic West during the Middle Ages, religious art was very popular and there was a lot of it, in the Byzantine Empire it had two periods of iconoclasm. and it's derived from the word icon. So what do you think that could mean if I just mentioned religious arts? Image making? Yes, well, it's actually the opposite of that. So during those periods, images and image making were problematic, and that actually left a visible legacy on Byzantine art because it created limits on what artists could represent, and how those subjects could be represented. So at the end of the other one of these periods, Middle Byzantine art actually picks up, and it actually extends to the sack of Constantinople by Latin Crusaders in 1204. Late Byzantine art was made between the sack of Constantinople and the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453. So that was just a short introduction into Byzantine art. In the West, medieval art is broken into a lot more smaller periods, since there was no rule of banning religious art in the West. So there is early medieval art, there's Romanesque art, Gothic art, and also Roman church styles and Gothic church styles. I will show you some images after you come back from the breakout rooms, but now let's just end this there. Yes, some of you are still taking notes, I see. Okay, so now I will divide you into groups. Let's see. And you will discuss for about 15 minutes and then return back to the class. There we go. Okay, I'll see you guys.